Hello. Welcome back. Alright. So, this one is going to be called Getting Started with Visual Studio Code. And we're going to do some fun stuff. We're actually going to start coding a little bit. Alright. Like I said, for this project, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. And I will show you some things about that. And we don't want to be here. Close. I didn't want to show you that yet. Okay, we're just going to close it manually. Don't save. Okay, cool. Alright, so I'll zoom this in a little bit so you can see. We're going to open a folder. We're going to open up Candyland. Alright. So this is Visual Studio Code's pretty much start welcome page. You can use Git to clone. You can open a folder. You can open a file. Pretty much anything. If you want to configure your settings, there's quick links here. If you want to add keyboard shortcuts from Vim or Sublime, whatever you want to use. I pretty much keep the same thing. Now you might notice that I have these like cool little icons over here. Just allows me to be able to easily see, I need C#. Boom. I'll look for the C#. I'm going to show you some extensions I have. We're going to go quickly over these really fast. Auto close tag is it just automatically closes HTML tags that I start. So if I do open bracket P, close bracket, click enter, it'll go ahead and automatically close. It'll make a closing bracket. Beautify allows you to beautify your code in place to make it really nice and clean. If you're used to brackets, it's sort of the same thing where you go to file, where's the file? So edit, and I don't know if I have the extension in here anymore. It might be view. Okay, not real sure. I reinstalled my Linux, so I haven't actually used brackets since I've been there. But it's sort of the same thing. I've used it. So it'll just beautify your code in place, and that is very important because, again, I don't know if I illustrated. But we're gonna be using GitHub, so you need to be on your own branch and make sure that your code is just nice. If you need to know coding standards, then there's a few tutorials online, some articles. The one thing I don't like to see is if there's a bunch of empty space, white space, variables that are not needed, stuff like that, stuff that's not being used, get rid of it. It's just not clean, and it's easier for people that are using Git to know if we have, if it says we have 30 additions and they're white space, that's pointless. Why do we have this? We should not see that at all. Okay, enough with that. C# is OmniSharp. Microsoft, I think, purchased them, bought them out, so now it's just an extension to Visual Studio Code. What that does is, you'll see in a second, basically sort of runs through the project and does sort of what Visual Studio does and tells you, hey, this class is named wrong, this is wrong, fix this, and you can do a control space, and it'll sort of give you helpful hints. It also does some IntelliSense for you as well for C#. C# extensions is allows you to easily create classes. So if I wanted to go here and say create a new class, create a new interface, for instance, if I do a new class, we'll just call it temp class for now, right? So temp class. I'll go ahead and put my namespace in there and class right there. That sort of thing. We'll say yes to this. I'm going to show you how to do that. We're not going to do this, but if I were to click restore, it's going to run the Dotnet Restore command, and that's all that it's doing. But it is letting you know, since I do have that extension C# in there, that it's running through the code and saying, hey, you didn't restore the packages. I don't know what ASP core is. That's all it's doing. Alright, so I think I went over all the extensions I'm using. HTML snippets. You can create your own HTML snippets. OneDark Pro is a theme, and Visual Studio Icons is these icons here. Alright, so the three files that we'll focus on for this tutorial are the Candyland csproj, Program CS, and Startup CS. So we'll go to Start Program CS. You're not really going to touch this ever. I don't know. I've never touched it. I don't know anyone who really has touched it. There are people who do it, but for most applications, you just don't need it, because all this is doing is starting the application, right? So it's really not needed. It doesn't really need to be touched. Your startup class is basically going to add your services in, whether that be Entity Framework, interfaces, MVC, whatever, and it's going to pipe them into this and create a pipeline to your application where you can actually run your controllers, stuff like that. Excuse me for 1 second. I guess good thing these aren't going on YouTube. I don't know if I'd be doing videos while I'm sick. Alright. Okay. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and build our application. If you want to use a command prompt window, PowerShell, or a terminal, if you're on Mac or Linux, you can open up your own and do the same thing I'm doing here. I can do Dotnet Restore. If you see it pop up, you can click the Restore. As long as that you know that the Restore is actually doing Dotnet Restore. That are the commands. Also, Visual Studio, no, I like to use it in the debugger, right? And I'm going to show you how to set up your debugger, although it said that it added it. I'm going to show you how to fix it if it doesn't add it right. But if you go down to View, and there is Integrated Terminal right here, I can do the Dotnet Restore here. So, boom. Da 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 da. Doom doom. Alright, so restored my package. So, if you want to use the debugger within Visual Studio Code, you should be able to click this, and it has Core Web Launch already selected. Now, this is going to work correctly. I'll tell you why in a second. So if I click this, it's going to run, it's going to build, and it should launch my application. Boom, hello world. Now for whatever reason, sometimes it doesn't work that beautiful. Sometimes you'll get within your launch JSON, which just lives within, so you might have to go to edit this file, you will have to go to your documents or wherever your projects are stored and unhide files, and it lives in VS Code, and this is where this project is. And so this is just for Visual Studio. They will be ignored by Git. We're not going to worry about your Visual Studio setup or whatever. We don't want that pushed, so don't push it. You will need to basically tell it where the program is, and so ours is in every single, it should do this. It should say bin, debug, you're going to be running a Dotnet Core app. You're going to be on version 1.0. I will show you how to figure this out if you don't know, and candyland.dol. Now, if yours doesn't look like this, and it has like some weird, like, let me just open up, let's do a new window of notes here. This was stuff here. We'll do a new one. Alright, so within here, if it has something like app version or whatever, and then it has like another thing here that says and little things that say project name with like .dll. Something sort of similar to that. If you can't see that, let me close this. I'll go here and I'm gonna do new file temp. Hopefully you can see that. If you can't, I will zoom in a little bit more. Or zoom. I'm not used to this text editor completely. Okay, so if you see something like that in your launch JSON file, just delete it. And you need to exactly give it the exact. So if you see like this workspace root, for whatever reason that works, but the other stuff never works. I can't get it to work. So the easiest way is to let Visual Studio Code generate this for you. Honestly, you'll never use it again, right? You're not going to touch it. You're not going to be doing a lot of edits in here. Just let it do its thing. If you actually go to the debug and click this like add configuration or add configuration, it never works unless you actually explicitly tell it bin debug net core app Candyland DOL. If you need help finding that, which we're going to go to next, is this. So this is your target framework. This is where we're going, but as you see, we don't really have all this set up yet. So we don't have the description, the name of the project, exactly where everything lives. For this tutorial, I'm probably not going to set that up. There's a great link. I will show you where to set that up, and it is this link here. So prior to Dotnet Core, or Dotnet 4, whatever, used Project JSON, and I'll actually I got that wrong. And Dotnet Core 1.0.1, they use Project.json. For whatever reason, Microsoft said we're not doing it anymore. We're going to go with a csproj file. We're going to use the csproj file. So that is what they're doing. So just beware that they've changed it, but they gave us this very cool link that says this is how you did it in JSON, this is how you're going to do it in XML. And it's pretty much the same thing, it's just one's XML, one was JSON. I don't know why you would go away from JSON. JSON's very easy to see and everyone knows it, but anyways, they're going to go do it like this for whatever reason. And so it's pretty much, you know, like I'm saying, if we had a property group, we could put our author, our company name, description, you know, we could put all that stuff in there. We're not really going to do it. If you want to, go ahead, play with it. I suggest that you play with it. But anyways, we're going to continue with the thing. I'm going to try to make this a 2-video series. Alright, so I'm going to teach you 2 ways to add packages in here. The reason why we have to run the Dotnet Restore command is to restore packages. Now right now, if I go over to our startup CSS and I say, you know, I want to add MVC, so I should be able to do services dot add MVC, right? It doesn't know where that is. Doesn't know what it is. So we have to add MVC. So for right now, we're just going to delete it so it doesn't get confused. We're going to save that. Alright, so there's 2 ways you can do it. You can type it through the terminal here. You can go through Visual Studio's debugger. You can go to terminal. You can run it from here if you'd like. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Another way to do it is you can actually go in here. I'm going to open this file so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to run it through here. So I'm going to run the command .net. That tells your machine that you're going to be doing a .net command. I'm going to do add. Then the way that I think about it when I'm trying to remember these commands that I'm typing is what am I adding, right? So I'm adding a package. Where does the package live? You got to tell it exactly where it is. So by heart, I just know that this package lives at Microsoft.ASP.NET.Core.MVC. And make sure that you get the correct capitalization. Not saying that it won't work without it, but it works a whole lot better when you do have your stuff capitalized, so you're explicitly telling it this versus it trying to say, alright, I'll try to figure it out. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click enter .NET add package and the package name. Now look at the file. Alright, so it's going to go up there, it's going to get it, boom. Alright, and so I'm going to go ahead and click this restore just to show you that it does the same thing. It's restoring packages, and that's all it does. So it does the same thing as Dotnet Restore. If you have the extension installed, if you do not have the extension installed, you will need to run the command .net restore. Now, when I say that, you don't have to run the command every single time you add one package. You could add 50 packages and then do .net restore. Just know that if a certain package requires a different dependency, that you have that dependency as well, or it's not going to restore, right? Because if one package relies on another, or one update breaks the other one, that sort of thing, you need to know, like, hey, this isn't going to work. Unfortunately, this is very unfortunate. Now, I've mentioned it to Microsoft. You might ask, like, how do I figure out my packages? Like, how do I know what I'm going to use? There's not really a good way. Not even within Visual Studio. Visual Studio, you can use the package manager. But if you're building a Dotnet Core application, chances are you're not going to find it. You're going to have to explicitly say, I want ASP.NET Core, and then type whatever. I'm going to show you. So this is the same package manager that you would get with inside Visual Studio. And if I said, I want Core MVC, it doesn't come up. It doesn't. It's not even nowhere like at the top of the list. It's just not. You know, I wish that they had something simple like Node Package Manager, which, you know, if I say MS SQL, for instance, you know, it just pops right up. And it gives me good detail about it, everything about it. It's very documented. It's nice, right? And this is not even by Microsoft, so whatever. But to really get the package, you need to do ASP.NET Core. And then you need to do, and then you could do like, okay, I want MVC, right? And then you'll have to come down here and sort of find it. I'm like, well, I think, oh, there it is. You see, it's not very intuitive. It's just not. I don't know why. I'm not even sure if they have a, let's see, .NET Core package manager. Maybe they do. Let's see what this is. You could probably try this extension out. Well, it says it's unpublished. So I guess it's not. They don't want you to use it. I don't know. If you can find a better way, let me know. I haven't really found a better way. It's just you sort of got to know sort of where the stuff lives. We're going to be installing these command line tools, but I mean, they're sort of, yeah, they're just sort of part of it. So basic usage, .NET Build. See, we already have all this. All this stuff's already installed, so this is not really what we want. Just go away. In fact, I don't want to see anything. So anyway, if you can figure out a way, most of the time you can sort of find it online if you just do like a simple Google search. I have some common packages, but basically everything lives within Microsoft.ASP.NET Core and then whatever you're doing. And we're going to be adding static files in Razor, which we already added in VC. So now, if I do a .NET Build, so .NET Build, boom, it's going to build. I'm going to have to call Washington back. It's probably Microsoft. Just kidding. Ooh, we have 2 errors. What are those errors? Being used by another process. Oh, we never ended our thingy. Okay. Cool. Okay, so now we'll do it again. .NET. Alright. So now if I come to my startup class, I want to add a new service. Services dot add MVC. See? Boom. Didn't do it right. Okay, boom. So now I can use MVC. Now I'll show you how to set up MVC and how we're going to use MVC. Because this is just telling it we're using MVC, but we actually haven't told it how to use MVC. Alright, so you can look up online more about the configure method. All this is doing is saying if this is in development, use a developer exception page. The developer exception page allows you, it just gives you more detail when the application crashes or gets to a page that it can't process the request. It'll say, hey, your code crashed on this line, this is why, right? But you don't want everybody to see that. For this, we'll set that up later, but for right now, since we're learning, we're just going to always run it in dev mode, right? It's on a local machine. It's not a big deal. Now, when it gets to production, you will want to do this. You want to make sure that you're checking which environment and like, alright, I need this for this environment, I need this for this environment. Sort of thing. You might have like 3 different environments, right? So just make sure that you have that sort of set up. Alright, so this is where we were getting our hello world, and all that's doing is saying write that to the screen for our application. So we're just going to get rid of all this. Boom, 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 boom. Alright, so the other way that you can add dependencies is directly into your csproj file. And I'm going to go ahead and click save all. Boom, save all. Alright, so I could just copy this line here, copy, boom, and then I can say, you know, I want razor. Do I have insert on or something? Is that weird? Wait a minute here. Am I not the only one tripping? Because that made me trip out. What? Is that weird or what? Wait a minute. That is weird. That's not supposed to happen like that. Wow. I don't know what I pressed. Okay, maybe it's because I'm just zoomed in really far. Yeah, it just doesn't like me to be zoomed in. Okay, so we're gonna do razor. Cool thing is, hopefully you still can see it. I want to be zoomed in more because you guys need to be able to see it. Alright, so I'm gonna do the, yeah, this is weird. Okay, so I'm just gonna do 1.0.0. Maybe I don't know the version number, right? I don't know it. I'm gonna click on it and go ahead and save. Now, down here, I'm going to run the Dotnet Restore, right? Boom, Dotnet Restore. And so it added it, but if I go back up, it's going to tell me that the detected package downgrade. You went from 1.1.2 to 1.00. So how we can fix that is we can go back over here and type in 1.1.2. Alright, and then we can save that. And then as you can see, it says unresolved. We can click restore. It'll restore our dependencies. Now, for the rest of them, I'm just going to type it in the terminal because I think that's the best way, because it'll go ahead and get me the newest package, most stable one. So that's just what I like to use. So static files. Go ahead and give me static files. And then I had a list of stuff that I wanted to add to. Nope, that was it. That's all I wanted. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to add those. That's what I'm going to. And next, we're going to add some tools. But we don't need the tools for right now. We're going to restore that again. Now we're going to come to our startup class. Alright. So now we have to tell it to use MVC. So we can do. Oh, that's not what you want to do. App has. You can do app dot use developer exception page, boom boom, then app dot use status code pages, and I'll tell you what each one of these do. App dot use static files, app dot use MVC default route. Hold on one second. All right. This is also where we're going to be using our middleware, a bunch of stuff. I already explained use developers exception page. We're also going to use status code pages. Status code pages allows people to be returned a status code. For instance, we're going to do it right now. If I go ahead and run this application, what do you expect that I get? Because I removed the right thing. I have MVC installed, right? I've configured it, but I don't really have any views. I don't have any models. I don't have any controllers. I don't have any code in here to tell it anything I'm doing. So most of you are going to say, well, you probably get a 404, and you're correct because you can't find anything. There's nothing to do. But if we don't have that in there, for instance, if I take that out, you're not going to know if your application, what's going on. So, for instance, we can remove our status code from here, and if we go to run our application again, we're going to get a blank screen. Doesn't tell me anything. Well, you actually get Chrome's version of, if you're on Chrome or maybe another browser, they might tell you that it can't find the stuff and give you a 404. But it's just nice to use the status code pages, because if there's a 500 error, then I know that it's not my internet or whatever. So it's just nice to use. Static files, that's how your JavaScript, your CSS, your HTML pages, stuff like that, it's all going to be pushed to the server at once for them to use. That way they're only hitting our server when they need to make a request to something, like they're logging in or they're searching. Even then, searching, if we've already given them a page with all the results from the database, then they can just search there, and it doesn't actually have to ping our server, right? Unless they make another request, like a login request or something like that. Then we want to run the query on the database using the entity framework, check to see if they can log in, and then log them in if so. And then use the MVC with default route. That is just saying we're going to use MVC. We're not going to set up any custom routes. We're just going to set up the default, what everyone else uses. That's a lot easier than it was in the older versions of .NET, where you actually had to sort of configure it or let Visual Studio scaffold code, which is bad. We're not scaffolding code. So anyway, I'm going to end the video because I think it's getting sort of long. But that's the basic setup that we're going to be using for this tutorial. I'll go into more detail about the configure and the configure services, what actually goes in each of them. But to get your application up and running, we'll just set it up like this. The main focus here was to make sure that I was teaching you how to add your packages. Again, you can use the terminal, you can use this. Either way, it's going to look through this file here to make sure. It's going to look through the file, say, okay, it needs Razor, we're going to add Razor. It needs static files, we're going to add static files. The only reason I actually showed you the startup class right here is just so I can show you that we can use static files now, right? We can use MVC because we added it. Before, we couldn't do that because we didn't have it if we didn't restore our packages to the project. So there you go. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to be doing another video today. We're going to go into some more detail, so stick in there. From here on out, they're going to be pretty short and sweet, just because I just feel like I talk a lot, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone sort of feels comfortable with the project. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end it.